Caelis glittered like a jewel under the starlit sky, its floating platforms alive with the flickering lights of lumina. Tonight, the city was more than a marvel of engineering. It was a canvas painted with the vibrant hues of glowing lanterns and shimmering spells, casting iridescent reflections on the cloud banks below. Elara maneuvered through the bustling streets with an ease born of familiarity, her gaze occasionally lifting to the sky bridges crisscrossing between solar spires. The festival, which celebrated the longest night of the year, was marked by an extraordinary display of solar magic, lanterns that danced on invisible breezes and street lamps that hummed softly with stored daylight. As she passed by a group of children releasing miniature light balloons into the air, their faces alight with wonder, a part of her longed to capture this moment of pure enchantment. But beneath the spectacle, her mind was preoccupied with the array of pressure gauges and energy flow meters that awaited her attention tomorrow. Her role as a solar engineer might have been mundane in the eyes of the city's elite, but to Elara, it was a gateway to understanding the deeper mysteries of solar magic, mysteries that perhaps held the key to her parents' unexplained disappearance years ago. Elara paused beside a fountain aglow with bioluminescent algae, its soft blue light casting ghostly shadows. She watched as the water arched gracefully into the air, each droplet reflecting the festival's luminosity. It was here, amidst the laughter and music swirling around her, that her thoughts drifted to the anomalies she noticed in the solar grids. Fluctuations that were dismissed by her superiors but seemed to her like whispers of a larger, hidden truth. Her contemplation was broken by the sound of her friend Milo's voice. "Thinking about work on a night like this? Come on, Elara, even the stars are out celebrating." Elara smiled, turning to face Milo, whose eyes sparkled with mischief. "Can't help it," she replied. "The grids don't maintain themselves, you know. And besides, there's something off this year. The energy levels in the upper sectors have been erratic the past few weeks." Milo laughed, draping an arm around her shoulders. "Only you would worry about voltages and currents when there's a festival to enjoy. Let the currents flow and the voltages fluctuate. Tonight we dance." Elara allowed herself a rare chuckle, shaking her head as Milo pulled her towards the main plaza, where a crowd had gathered around a troupe of aerial dancers. They watched as the performers, suspended by thin strands of light, twirled and spun through the air, their movements synchronized with the pulsating rhythms of the solar harps. As the performance reached its crescendo, a shadow passed overhead, a cloud, Elara assumed, but its timing was impeccable, dimming the lights just as the dancers reached towards the sky in a stunning finale. The crowd gasped, a ripple of uneasy murmurs spreading through the plaza. Elara's gaze snapped upward, her engineer's mind racing. Clouds did not form that quickly, nor did they move with such precision. "Did you see that?" she asked Milo, her voice tinged with urgency. Milo, still clapping, glanced at her bewildered. "See what? The dancers? Yes, they were brilliant, weren't they? No, not them, the sky. That wasn't just a cloud. Something's not right." Her eyes searched the skies again, but the anomaly had passed as quickly as it had appeared. "Elara, it's Lumina. Strange things are meant to happen. It's part of the charm," Milo reassured her, but his words did little to ease her mind. As the night progressed and the skies cleared to reveal the constellations, Elara couldn't dismiss the nagging suspicion that something significant lay behind the evening's fleeting shadow. The festival might have been a time for celebration, but for Elara, it had become the backdrop against which a deeper mystery began to unfold, compelling her to watch, wait, and wonder. As the Lumina festival drew to a close, the city of Caelis gradually settled into a quieter rhythm. The last of the revelers made their way home, their laughter echoing off the cloud-capped towers that stood sentinel over the sleeping city. Above, the constellations shone with unwavering light, oblivious to the terrestrial concerns below. Elara, however, found no rest. Her thoughts, electrified by the earlier anomaly, buzzed with theories and calculations. She lingered in the now deserted plaza, her eyes scanning the heavens as if the stars themselves might unveil the secret of the shadow that had marred the festival's finale. "It was probably just a trick of the light," Milo had said, trying to ease her concerns as they parted ways. But Elara knew the patterns of the skies as well as she knew the intricate circuits she tended daily. That shadow was no mere illusion. Returning to her small workshop, Elara pulled up the city's energy logs on her console. The data streamed across the screen in luminous arcs and dips, a visual symphony of the city's lifeblood. There it was, a slight but distinct fluctuation in the power output at the exact moment the shadow crossed the plaza. Not significant enough to alarm her superiors, perhaps, but to Elara, it was a whisper of something out of place. Her fingers danced over the console, tracing the pathways of power distribution back to their sources. If there was an irregularity, it would be logged here, in the heart of the city's solar network. And there, another anomaly, a brief dip in solar energy that coincided with the first. "Why didn't the automated systems flag this?" she muttered to herself, her brow furrowed in concentration. The system was designed to overlook minor fluctuations, a necessary tolerance built into a grid powered by the ever-variable sun. But tonight those minor shifts felt ominous. Elara compiled the data, her thoughts racing faster than the processors that served as her daily companions. She needed a second opinion, someone who could confirm she wasn't chasing shadows. Her mind went to Professor Halen, her mentor during her academy years and one of the few who had always encouraged her to trust her instincts. A message sent into the night, a beacon of digital inquiry, and she waited, her workshop lit only by the glow of her screens. The reply came quicker than she expected, Halen's words cutting through the digital ether. "Elara, meet me at the university. We need to discuss this in person." The university was quiet at this hour. The academic fervor paused in the deep breath of night. Professor Halen met her by the solar labs, his face etched with concern that mirrored her own. "This isn't just a glitch, is it?" Elara asked without preamble, handing over the data slate. Halen's eyes, old yet sharp beneath his furrowed brows, scanned the numbers. "No, it's not. I've seen similar patterns before, years ago. They were the precursor to..." His voice trailed off, lost in memories. "To what?" Elara pressed, sensing the weight of his hesitance. "To a storm," he replied gravely. "A solar storm, but artificially triggered. It was an experiment, one that should have been decommissioned." "A storm? Could it cause what I saw tonight?" "Potentially," Halen conceded. "If someone has reactivated the old tech or worse, repurposed it." The implications hung between them, a storm cloud in their midst. Who would do such a thing? And why now? Halen was silent for a moment, his gaze drifting to a locked cabinet in his office. Finally, he spoke, his voice low. "There are those within the council who would do anything for power. Be careful, Elara. You might not like what you find." Elara nodded, her resolve hardening. The night had deepened around them, the stars now hidden by a gathering veil of clouds. She stepped out of the university, the data slate clutched like a shield. The mystery had deepened, rooted now in the dark soil of conspiracy. But Elara was no longer just an engineer. She was a seeker of truths, determined to shine a light on whatever shadows sought to engulf her city. As she walked back to her workshop, the first drops of an unforecasted rain began to fall, tapping out a staccato rhythm on the city of clouds. The storm was coming, and she would meet it head-on. The dawn that followed was unlike any other in Caelis. Heavy clouds smothered the sunrise, a rare sight in the city that almost never slept beneath a starless sky. The first light struggled through the haze, casting a pall over the streets still strewn with the remnants of last night's festivities. Elara watched from her workshop window, the unforecasted rain dripping in slow, rhythmic beats against the glass, like the ticking of a clock counting down to an inevitable revelation. Today, the city felt different, tenser, charged with a silent anticipation. Elara's meeting with Professor Halen had ended with more questions than answers, and the weight of their discovery pressed down on her as she prepared for the day. She couldn't ignore the urgency of Halen's warning, nor the implication that someone within the Solar Council might be orchestrating a crisis. Inside her workshop, the air was thick with the scent of ozone and metal. Elara gathered her tools, her mind racing through her inventory of circuit diagrams and power grid maps. She needed to see the anomalies for herself, not just as data points on a screen but as part of the living, breathing city. She set out into the streets, her steps measured, her eyes alert. The city's energy workers were already busy, their figures hunched over panels and conduits, murmuring about the strange weather and the flickering lights. None seemed aware of the deeper darkness brewing beneath their very hands. Elara's first stop was the central power hub, a towering structure of glass and steel that stood like a beacon in the heart of Caelis. The security was tight, as always, but today it seemed even more so, with guards stationed at every entrance, their eyes hidden behind reflective visors. "State your business," one of the guards demanded as Elara approached. "I'm here for a routine check," she replied, her voice steady despite the flutter of apprehension in her chest. "Solar Engineering Division." The guard scanned her ID card, his expression unreadable. After a moment, he nodded curtly and stepped aside. Elara passed through the security checkpoint, her heart pounding not just from the scrutiny but from the significance of what she might discover inside. The hub was a labyrinth of corridors and control rooms, pulsing with the life force of the city. Elara navigated the complex with familiarity, her credentials granting her access to the core where the main energy conduits converged. Here, the heart of Caelis beat strongest, the hum of power a constant backdrop to the technicians' vigilant monitoring. Elara's gaze fell on the main console, where the latest energy readings flickered across multiple screens. She logged into the system, her fingers deftly calling up the logs from the night of Lumina. There it was again, the dip, brief but undeniable, a shadow on the heart of the city. A technician noticed her focused scrutiny. "Something wrong, miss?" "Just double-checking some fluctuations from last night," Elara replied without looking up. "Probably nothing." But both knew it was something. The technician hesitated, then leaned closer, lowering his voice. "You're not the only one who's noticed. There's been talk. Rumors of something big coming. Bigger than a mere glitch." Elara met his gaze, a silent question passing between them. The technician glanced around, then spoke again. "If you're digging, dig deep. But be careful. Not everyone wants to see what lies beneath." Armed with fresh data and a burgeoning sense of conspiracy, Elara left the hub, her mind teeming with plans. She needed allies, and there was one person who had always believed in her, even when her theories seemed as fantastical as the tales told during Lumina. As she made her way to the old quarter, where retired engineers and forgotten inventors dwelled, her purpose was clear. She would find Milo's uncle, Cyrus, a former council engineer with his own tales of shadows and storms. The old quarter was quiet, the rain muffling sounds, making the world seem hushed and expectant. Elara found Cyrus in his workshop, surrounded by ancient tomes and prototype machines. "Uncle Cyrus, I need your help," she began, her voice a mix of determination and desperation. Cyrus, with his wild hair and keen eyes, looked up from his workbench, a smile spreading across his face as he recognized the fire in Elara's eyes, a fire he had once known in his own youth. "Of course, my dear," he said, gesturing for her to come in out of the rain. "I've been waiting for someone to ask the right questions. Let's see what truths we can uncover together." Together, they would delve into the shadows of Caelis, ready to face whatever storms might come. The air in Cyrus's workshop was thick with the scent of oil and aged paper, a stark contrast to the sterile atmosphere of Elara's usual haunts. Tools and gadgets of indeterminate age and function cluttered every surface, a testament to a lifetime spent at the bleeding edge of innovation, and now at the margins of society. As Elara stepped inside, closing the door softly behind her, she felt as though she were entering not just a room but a different world entirely, one that hummed with the quiet intensity of forgotten knowledge. Cyrus motioned her towards a cluttered table where schematics and solar diagrams were spread out like a cartographer's map of hidden treasures. "Now tell me everything," he urged, his eyes gleaming with curiosity and concern. Elara laid out the data she had gathered, her voice steady but her hands betraying a slight tremor as she pointed to the anomalies she'd discovered. "It started at Lumina, or at least that's when I first noticed it. There's a pattern, Cyrus, not just random fluctuations. Someone is manipulating the solar grid, and I think it's intentional." Cyrus listened intently, his brow furrowed as he traced the lines of power flow with a gnarled finger. "I suspected as much," he murmured, more to himself than to Elara. "The Council has long had elements that would stop at nothing to gain more control. But this is bold, even for them." He shuffled through a stack of papers, pulling out an old, yellowed document. "Here," he said, handing it to her. "This is from my time on the Council. We started a project aimed at enhancing the solar grid's efficiency. But there were side effects. Dangerous ones. We shut it down, or at least I thought we did." Elara scanned the document, her mind racing as she connected the dots. "This could explain the artificial storm Halen mentioned. If someone has restarted this project, it could be catastrophic. We need proof," Cyrus stated flatly. "And allies. There are others who have noticed the shadows creeping in, who remember the old ways and the old checks and balances. They will help us." With a plan forming, Elara felt a flicker of hope amidst the gathering gloom. They spent the rest of the day poring over Cyrus's archives and making discreet calls to those few they could trust. Each conversation was a delicate dance of cryptic questions and veiled answers, but by nightfall, they had assembled a small cadre of unlikely revolutionaries, retired engineers, ousted council members, and a handful of young innovators who had clashed with the council's rigid constraints. As the rain finally ceased and a false peace settled over Caelis, they gathered in the back room of a dimly lit cafe that had once been a hub for the city's intellectuals and dreamers. Elara looked around at the faces, some lined with age and others alight with youthful fervor, and felt an unexpected weight lift from her shoulders. She was not alone. "We're dealing with someone powerful, someone who isn't afraid to gamble with the city's lifeblood," Elara began, her voice cutting through the murmurs of greeting. "The anomalies in the grid aren't accidents. They're a prelude to something bigger. We need to find out what it is and stop it before it's too late." The group exchanged glances, the gravity of the situation settling in. "We'll need access to the Central Hub's mainframe." One of the ousted council members, a grizzled old man named Darian, spoke up. "That's where they'd be coordinating from. It's heavily guarded, but I might still have some security codes that haven't been deactivated. Tomorrow we start digging where they least expect it," Cyrus declared, his voice firm. "We use the old maintenance tunnels. They run right beneath the hub. It's risky, but it'll get us close enough to do a deep scan of the network." Elara nodded, her resolve hardening. "We do this not just for ourselves, but for all of Caelis. For the city that thrives in light, not lurks in shadows." As the meeting dispersed, the group blending back into the shadows of the night, Elara felt the first stirrings of a storm within, one not of destruction, but of defiance. The battle for Caelis' soul was just beginning, and she was ready to lead the charge. Under the cloak of nightfall, the streets of Caelis breathed a quiet, wary life as Elara and her band of revolutionaries prepared for their clandestine mission. The old maintenance tunnels, long forgotten by most, provided a shadowy vein through which they could infiltrate the underbelly of the central hub. Their steps echoed softly against the damp cobblestones, a muffled symphony of resolve and trepidation. Cyrus led the way, his lantern casting a feeble glow that danced eerily off the tunnel walls. These passages haven't seen much use since the energy expansions of 34, he whispered, his voice a reverberant thread in the oppressive darkness. Keep close, and watch your step. Elara followed, her mind churning with the possibilities of what they might find. Beside her, Darian, the ousted council member, kept a wary eye on the structural integrity of the passages. These tunnels might be old, but they're our best shot at getting into the hub unnoticed. The security has been tightened up top, but down here, we're ghosts. As they progressed, the faint hum of the city's energy grid grew louder, a constant reminder of the lifeblood of Caelis that thrummed just beyond their reach. Every so often, Elara paused, pressing her hand against the cool, damp walls, feeling the vibrations of power that flowed like a mighty river through the city's veins. They reached a juncture marked by an ancient service door, its metal corroded but sturdy. Darian produced a small device, a relic from his days on the council. "This should get us through," he muttered, fiddling with the lock mechanism. With a soft click, the door swung open, revealing a dimly lit corridor that led directly into the heart of the central hub. The group paused, the gravity of their task settling in. Elara peered down the corridor, her eyes adjusting to the contrast between the darkness of the tunnel and the artificial light that beckoned them forward. "This is it," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "Let's find out what they're hiding." They moved with renewed caution, aware that each step took them deeper into the lion's den. The corridor ended at a maintenance hatch that opened into the lower levels of the central hub's mainframe room. Elara and Cyrus exchanged a glance, a silent agreement passing between them. With a gentle push, Elara opened the hatch and peered through. Below them, the mainframe room buzzed with the activity of machines and the occasional footfall of night shift technicians. Screens displayed streams of data, mapping the flow of power across Caelis. Elara's heart raced as she spotted the section of the grid they had come to investigate. "There," she pointed. "The anomalies originate from that console." They descended into the room, blending into the shadows cast by banks of towering servers. Elara led the group to the console, her fingers flying over the keys as she accessed the system. The data unfolded before her, a web of commands and overrides that painted a chilling picture of manipulation and control. "It's worse than we thought," she murmured, pulling up a series of encrypted files that detailed plans not just for energy manipulation, but for the creation of a synthetic storm capable of crippling the entire city. "They're planning a demonstration of power, a show of force to secure their hold over the council." Cyrus leaned over her shoulder, his face grim. "We need to expose this, now. Before it's too late." Elara nodded, downloading the files onto a portable drive. "Let's get this evidence to the surface. People need to know the truth." As they retraced their steps back to the tunnels, the weight of their discovery bore down on them, a heavy cloak of responsibility. But amidst the fear, there was a spark of hope, kindled by the thought of reclaiming their city from the shadows that sought to engulf it. They emerged from the tunnels as dawn painted the horizon with strokes of amber and gold, the city of Caelis waking unaware to the precipice on which it teetered. Elara looked back once, the outline of the central hub etched against the morning sky, a fortress of secrets now laid bare by their daring. The battle for Caelis' soul was underway, and armed with the truth, they were ready to bring the fight into the light. As the first light of dawn washed over Caelis, Elara and her group found refuge in a forgotten warehouse deep in the city's industrial sector. The large, cavernous space, filled with the echoes of its productive past, now served as their temporary command center. Here, surrounded by the remnants of old machinery and the sharp smell of rust, they would plan their next move. Elara set up the portable drive with the encrypted files on a makeshift workstation, her hands steady despite the fatigue that tugged at her bones. The information they had uncovered was explosive, a detailed plan orchestrated by high-ranking officials within the Solar Council, designed not only to manipulate the energy grid but to incite chaos through a manufactured storm, consolidating their power and the ensuing crisis. "We need to make these files public," Alara stated, her voice resolute as she looked around at the assembled faces, each marked by a night of relentless tension and unwavering purpose. But we must be smart about it. The Council controls the media. We'll have to bypass their channels. Cyrus, his face lined with both age and determination, nodded in agreement. I have contacts in the underground radio network. We can transmit the data directly to the people, unfiltered and undeniable. Darian leaned against the rusted beam, his eyes narrowed in thought. It's risky. The Council will trace it back to us in no time. We'll need a distraction, something big enough to draw their attention away from the broadcast. A murmur of assent rippled through the group. It was then that Jana, a young engineer who had joined their cause, stepped forward. What if we create a counter-surge in the grid? Something to simulate an impending storm but under our control. It would force them to redirect their resources to stabilize the grid, giving us a window to broadcast the truth. Alara considered this, her mind racing through the logistics and potential consequences. It could work, but we'll need to split up. One team handles the surge, the other the broadcast. We may not get another shot at this. The plan was set into motion with meticulous care. As the city stirred awake, oblivious to the storm brewing beneath its calm exterior, Alara and a small team made their way to an access point for the city's main energy grid. Meanwhile, Cyrus and his team prepared the broadcast equipment, ready to send a signal that would resonate through every corner of Caelis. The energy hub was a fortress of modern technology, humming with the power that flowed through its veins. Alara's team worked with precision, their movements swift and silent as they recalibrated the flow, creating a controlled chaos that would mimic the onset of a catastrophic storm. The city's sensors picked up the anomaly almost immediately, and Alara could almost hear the frantic calls echoing through the Council's chambers as they scrambled to assess the threat. Back at the warehouse, Cyrus's voice broke through the static as he began the transmission. Citizens of Caelis, we have been deceived. The storm that threatens our city is not of nature's making but a creation forged from greed and the desire for control. We bring you the truth. The broadcast cut through the city like a clarion call, raw and revealing. Screens across Caelis flickered as the encrypted files spilled their secrets, exposing the Council's machinations in stark, undeniable clarity. As the Council reeled, their focus torn between the foe's storm and the damning revelations, the city's populace reacted with a mix of outrage and mobilization. Groups formed in streets and squares, their voices rising in a cacophony of demands for accountability and change. Alara watched from a shadowed alcove near the hub, the weight of their actions settling around her like a mantle. They had tipped the first domino, setting off a chain reaction that would reshape the fabric of Caelis. The road ahead would be fraught with challenges, but for the first time, there was a spark of real hope, a belief that the darkness could be pushed back and the light restored. The battle for Caelis' soul was far from over, but as Alara stepped back into the breaking day, her spirit was unbroken, bolstered by the knowledge that the truth was out, and with it, the power to reclaim the destiny of their city. In the heart of Caelis, under a sky burdened with the threat of a manufactured storm, the true tempest was the uproar of its citizens. The broadcast had ignited a firestorm of activity. People poured from their homes and workplaces, gathering in the city squares and around the towering spires of the council buildings, their chants and cries forming a cacophony that could not be ignored. Alara, with her core team, watched from the fringes. The city pulsed with energy, not just the electrical currents that flowed through its veins, but the potent, vibrant energy of a populace awakened. She knew that this moment was just the beginning. We've started something that we must now see through to the end, she whispered to Cyrus, who stood beside her, his face etched with both pride and worry. It's time to confront the council directly. Cyrus nodded, his gaze scanning the swelling crowds. The people are with us. It's time the council answered for their actions. The plan was risky, to march directly into the council's chambers during the height of the chaos. With the city's security forces overwhelmed, They had a narrow window to breach the council's sanctum and demand justice. Elara led her group through the network of back alleys and service routes she knew so well, moving towards the heart of power in Caelis. As they approached, the sound of the crowd grew louder, a roaring tide of anger and demand for change. The council building loomed ahead, its usual gleaming surface now overshadowed by the dark clouds above and the throngs of protesters below. Elara felt a surge of adrenaline as she and her companions slipped inside, bypassing the distracted security details who were more focused on containing the external turmoil. Inside, the corridors were eerily silent, a stark contrast to the chaos outside. Elara's heart thudded in her chest with each step towards the council chamber, where she knew the leaders of Caelis would be gathered, likely in a frantic bid to salvage their control over the city. As they burst into the chamber, the scene was one of controlled panic. Council members stood around a large holographic map of the city, their faces taut with stress. Upon seeing Elara and her group, a mixture of recognition and fear flickered across their faces. "Counselors," Elara called out, her voice echoing in the high-ceilinged room. "The game is over. The people of Caelis know the truth. You cannot control the storm you've created outside these walls." The head counselor, a woman with sharp eyes and a sharper tongue, stepped forward. "This is anarchy. You are threatening the stability of the entire city." Elara met her gaze unflinchingly. "No, we are restoring it. Your plans are exposed. It's time to step down and answer for what you've done." The tension in the room crackled like the charged air before a storm. Cyrus stepped forward, holding up the portable drive. "We have all the evidence we need. Your manipulation of the energy grid, the planned disasters, all documented and now public knowledge." One by one, council members lowered their eyes, the fight draining from them as the reality of their situation settled in. Outside, the shouts of the crowd grew louder, a demanding surge that penetrated even the thick walls of the council chamber. Elara's voice softened slightly but retained its firm resolve. "You can end this peacefully. Resign and face the consequences lawfully, or the people will take matters into their own hands." Faced with the undeniable force of a city united against them, the councilors capitulated. One by one, they stepped down, their reign ending not with the storm they had planned, but with the storm of justice brought upon them by the citizens they had sought to control. As Elara and her group exited the council chamber, the people outside cheered, their voices merging into a powerful chorus that sang of change and renewal. The dark clouds above seemed to dissipate, as if the city itself was breathing a sigh of relief. The battle for Caelis' soul had reached its climax, but Elara knew the struggle was not over. Rebuilding would take time, and the path forward would need to be paved with trust and transparency. But for the first time in a long while, hope shone like a beacon in the city of clouds, guiding its people into a new dawn. The sun rose over Caelis with a brilliance that seemed to herald a new era. As the city awoke to the reality of its reclaimed freedom, the air was thick with the scent of renewal. In the squares and streets where protests had roared the day before, there was now a palpable sense of community and purpose. Elara watched from her apartment balcony, taking in the scene of citizens gathering to discuss the future, their voices no longer cries of anger but of constructive debate. Cyrus joined her, his presence a reassuring constant. "We've torn down the old guards, Elara, but the harder task lies ahead. Building anew, in a way that honors the voice of every citizen," he remarked, his gaze reflective. Elara nodded, her mind alive with the possibilities and challenges that lay before them. "The council is disbanded, but we need a transitional government until new elections can be organized. We must ensure this process is transparent and fair." The task was daunting. The corruption of the old council had deep roots, and many were wary of a power vacuum. Elara proposed an assembly of citizens, representatives from each district of Caelis, to oversee the transition. This body would not only govern but also serve as a public forum for all policy debates, a place where no voice was too small, no concern too trivial. In the following weeks, Elara and her team worked tirelessly. They set up communication channels that broadcast debates and decisions live, ensuring that every step taken was visible to the populace. Technology once used to manipulate was now repurposed to empower and educate. One crisp morning, as Elara walked through the bustling marketplace, she felt the change in the air. Stalls that had once sold only necessities now displayed innovations, solar gadgets and recycled wares, symbols of a city thinking forward. A young girl approached her, a makeshift badge of the new Citizens' Assembly pinned proudly on her chest. "Miss Elara, look! I've made a solar charger. It's small, but it works," she beamed, holding up a tiny, gleaming device. Elara took the charger, examining it with genuine interest. "This is excellent work," she praised, handing it back. "You're helping rebuild Caelis, one piece at a time." The girl's smile widened, and in her bright eyes, Elara saw the future, a generation ready to rise from the shadows of corruption, armed with innovation and the unyielding spirit of their city. The challenges remained, of course. Rebuilding trust in governance took time, and the scars of manipulation ran deep. But with each open assembly, each policy shaped by the people's will, Caelis grew stronger. The city's energy grid, once a tool of control, was now a network of collaboration, its power literally and figuratively in the hands of the citizens. As the first anniversary of the council's fall approached, Elara stood before a gathering in the central square, the same place where the tides had turned a year ago. The crowd was vast, a sea of faces lit by hope and the soft glow of dawn. "Today, we celebrate not just the fall of tyranny but the rise of a community." Elara addressed the crowd, her voice clear and strong. "We have shown that from the storm can come strength, from darkness, light. Let us continue to be the architects of our fate, builders of a city that shines not just for us but as a beacon for all." The applause that followed was thunderous, a resounding affirmation of the path they had chosen. As the cheers subsided, the citizens of Caelis mingled, their conversations a blend of reflection and anticipation. Looking over the crowd, Elara felt a profound sense of accomplishment and responsibility. The journey had been arduous, the battles fierce, but the rewards, a city reborn under the ideals of transparency and collective effort, were beyond measure. The sun climbed higher, casting its light on a city transformed. In every corner of Caelis, from the sparkling solar spires to the vibrant marketplaces, the energy was palpable. Here, in this city of clouds, hope did not just shine, it soared. The annual festival of Lumina approached, its arrival marked not just by the calendar but by a city transformed. Caelis, once shrouded in the shadows of deceit, now sparkled with the vibrant energies of innovation and unity. The festival, traditionally a celebration of light conquering darkness, had taken on a deeper significance this year. It was not only a tribute to the celestial wonders but also a celebration of the city's new dawn. Elara stood on the balcony of the city hall, overlooking the preparations in the main square. Lanterns, more colorful and numerous than in previous years, were being strung between the solar spires, each one crafted by local artisans who infused their work with stories of the city's journey from darkness to light. Beside her, Cyrus watched the bustling activity below, a smile playing on his lips. "Remember when we wondered if the city could ever heal from its wounds?" he mused, his voice tinged with nostalgia. Elara nodded, her eyes reflecting the myriad lights that began to flicker to life as dusk approached. "I remember, and I see now how resilience can turn pain into promise. Tonight we celebrate that spirit." As the sun set, casting a golden glow that seemed to bless the city, the festival of Lumina officially began. The air was filled with music, a symphony of voices, instruments, and the laughter of children who danced through the streets with sparklers in their hands, tracing patterns of joy in the twilight air. Elara descended to the square, mingling with the citizens whose faces were illuminated by both the light of the lanterns and the brightness of their smiles. She stopped often, listening to their stories, tales of small triumphs and shared dreams. Each word added to the tapestry of a community reborn, each story a testament to the enduring strength of the human spirit. At the center of the square, a large stage had been set up for the night's main event, a display of light art, where local technologists and artists had collaborated to create a spectacle that merged technology with tradition. As the crowd gathered, Elara took her place on the stage, the hum of anticipation vibrating through the air. "Ladies and gentlemen, citizens of Caelis," Elara began, her voice amplifying across the square. "Tonight, we gather under the banner of Lumina, a festival that symbolizes the triumph of light over darkness. This past year, we have lived that triumph. We have turned challenges into opportunities, and fears into bridges that have brought us closer." The crowd responded with cheers, a wave of applause that echoed off the buildings around them. Elara continued, her heart swelling with pride. "This celebration is yours, crafted by your hands, lit by your spirit, and shared with the world. Let us light these lanterns not just as symbols of what we have overcome, but as beacons for what we aspire to be." With a signal from Elara, the lanterns were released into the night sky, a river of light flowing upwards, painting the darkness with hues of hope and renewal. The crowd watched in awe, their faces turned skyward, as the lanterns drifted higher, carrying with them the collective aspirations of a city reborn. The light show that followed was nothing short of magical. Lasers and holograms danced in the sky, telling the story of Caelis through bursts of color and light. The narrative of their past year, the struggle, the victory, the rebirth, unfolded above them, a visual symphony that moved many to tears. As the final crescendo of light faded into the starlit sky, the festival of Lumina wound down, leaving behind a sense of fulfillment and a promise of continuity. The citizens of Caelis dispersed slowly, their hearts lighter, their spirits buoyed by the shared experience of beauty and community. Elara, standing alone for a moment, looked up at the stars. The same stars that had witnessed the city's darkest hours now shone on its brightest celebration. She felt a deep connection to every flickering light, each one a heartbeat of Caelis, each one a reminder of the journey they had embarked on together. Here, in this city of clouds, the Festival of Lumina was not just a celebration of light. It was a declaration of resilience, a community's pledge to illuminate the darkest corners with the light of hope and unity. As the last lanterns drifted out of sight, Elara knew that this Lumina would be remembered not just for the light it cast into the sky, but for the light it reignited in the hearts of all who called Caelis home. The annual Festival of Lumina approached, its arrival marked not just by the calendar but by a city transformed. Caelis, once shrouded in the shadows of deceit, now sparkled with the vibrant energies of innovation and unity. The festival, traditionally a celebration of light conquering darkness, had taken on a deeper significance this year. It was not only a tribute to the celestial wonders but also a celebration of the city's new dawn. Elara stood on the balcony of the city hall, overlooking the preparations in the main square. Lanterns, more colorful and numerous than in previous years, were being strung between the solar spires, each one crafted by local artisans who infused their work with stories of the city's journey from darkness to light. Beside her, Cyrus watched the bustling activity below, a smile playing on his lips. "Remember when we wondered if the city could ever heal from its wounds?" he mused, his voice tinged with nostalgia. Elara nodded, her eyes reflecting the myriad lights that began to flicker to life as dusk approached. "I remember, and I see now how resilience can turn pain into promise. Tonight we celebrate that spirit." As the sun set, casting a golden glow that seemed to bless the city, the Festival of Lumina officially began. The air was filled with music, a symphony of voices, instruments, and the laughter of children who danced through the streets with sparklers in their hands, tracing patterns of joy in the twilight air. Elara descended to the square, mingling with the citizens whose faces were illuminated by both the light of the lanterns and the brightness of their smiles. She stopped often, listening to their stories, tales of small triumphs and shared dreams. Each word added to the tapestry of a community reborn, each story a testament to the enduring strength of the human spirit. At the center of the square, a large stage had been set up for the night's main event, a display of light art, where local technologists and artists had collaborated to create a spectacle that merged technology with tradition. As the crowd gathered, Elara took her place on the stage, the hum of anticipation vibrating through the air. "Ladies and gentlemen, citizens of Caelis," Elara began, her voice amplifying across the square. "Tonight, we gather under the banner of Lumina, a festival that symbolizes the triumph of light over darkness. This past year, we have lived that triumph. We have turned challenges into opportunities, and fears into bridges that have brought us closer." The crowd responded with cheers, a wave of applause that echoed off the buildings around them. Elara continued, her heart swelling with pride. "This celebration is yours, crafted by your hands, lit by your spirit, and shared with the world. Let us light these lanterns not just as symbols of what we have overcome, but as beacons for what we aspire to be." With a signal from Elara, the lanterns were released into the night sky, a river of light flowing upwards, painting the darkness with hues of hope and renewal. The crowd watched in awe, their faces turned skyward, as the lanterns drifted higher, carrying with them the collective aspirations of a city reborn. The light show that followed was nothing short of magical. Lasers and holograms danced in the sky, telling the story of Caelis through bursts of color and light. The narrative of their past year, the struggle, the victory, the rebirth, unfolded above them, a visual symphony that moved many to tears. As the final crescendo of light faded into the starlit sky, the festival of Lumina wound down, leaving behind a sense of fulfillment and a promise of continuity. The citizens of Caelis dispersed slowly, their hearts lighter, their spirits buoyed by the shared experience of beauty and community. Elara, standing alone for a moment, looked up at the stars. The same stars that had witnessed the city's darkest hours now shone on its brightest celebration. She felt a deep connection to every flickering light, each one a heartbeat of Caelis, each one a reminder of the journey they had embarked on together. Here, in this city of clouds, the festival of Lumina was not just a celebration of light. It was a declaration of resilience, a community's pledge to illuminate the darkest corners with the light of hope and unity. As the last lanterns drifted out of sight, Elara knew that this Lumina would be remembered not just for the light it cast into the sky, but for the light it reignited in the hearts of all who called Caelis home. As the echoes of the Lumina festival faded into the fabric of Caelis, the city found itself wrapped in a gentle calm, the fervor of celebration giving way to a reflective tranquility. It was a time of introspection, not just for Elara but for every citizen, as they pondered the profound transformations that had reshaped their lives and their community. Walking through the serene streets in the cool twilight, Elara felt the subtle shift in the city's pulse. Where once the air was charged with uncertainty, now there was a sense of deliberate progress. The buildings and pathways, illuminated by the soft glow of environmentally friendly lights, no longer stood as mere structures but as monuments to the resilience and creativity of the people. Elara's thoughts were a quiet stream, flowing with considerations of the changes they had implemented. "We've altered not just the policies but the very atmosphere of Caelis," she mused aloud, her voice a soft murmur blending with the evening breeze. Cyrus, walking beside her, shared her reflective mood. "True, the city breathes differently now," he agreed. "There's a rhythm to it, like a gentle but persistent heartbeat, driven by the collective will of its people." As they strolled, they passed the newly opened community center, a hub of vibrant activity where citizens engaged in workshops and debates, their discussions vibrant with the enthusiasm of shared purpose. The center was a testament to the new governance model, a place where policy was not dictated but crafted through the collaborative effort of Caelis's inhabitants. "The tone we set here, how we continue to nurture this atmosphere, will define the future of Caelis," Elara observed, stopping to watch a group of children engaged in an interactive eco-project. Their laughter, pure and hopeful, was a sound that resonated with the new spirit of the city. The transformation was palpable in every corner of Caelis. Marketplaces thrummed with the exchange of innovative ideas and sustainable goods, cafes buzzed with discussions about new community initiatives, and even the quiet corners of the city seemed to whisper stories of change and renewal. Yet, as they approached the solar plaza, the site of many past confrontations, Elara's gaze drifted to the horizon where the faint outline of the industrial sector could be seen. She knew that not all changes were met with smiles. Some were born out of necessity, and they carried the weight of hard choices. We must be vigilant, Cyrus. The peace we are nurturing is fragile. The tone of hope is steady, but it needs to be sustained by constant effort and unwavering vigilance, she remarked, her tone mixing resolve with a hint of caution. Cyrus nodded, understanding the dual nature of their task. It's about balance, isn't it? Pushing forward while ensuring we don't lose what we've gained. Yes, Elara confirmed. Balance in all things, progress and tradition, innovation and sustainability, freedom and responsibility. That's the atmosphere we strive to maintain. Their walk took them back to the heart of the city, under the canopy of stars that seemed to shine a little brighter above Caelis. The air was cooler now, the night settling around them like a soft cloak, but the warmth between them spoke of shared dreams and a shared duty to guide their city towards a future as promising as the stars above. Tonight, the atmosphere of Caelis was a tapestry woven from countless threads of individual efforts, each contributing to the greater design. Elara felt a deep, abiding connection to every element, every shift in the wind that spoke of change, every stone that had witnessed the upheavals, and every light that guided their path forward. This was more than a city. It was a living entity, evolving with each day, each decision, each act of courage. And as she retired for the night, Elara knew that the work they had begun was far from finished. It would require patience, care, and a deep understanding of the delicate symphony of life that now played throughout Caelis, a symphony in which every citizen had a part to play. Thank you for sharing a moment of your day with me. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Really helps a lot. If you don't, well, I'll still love you. Thanks for stopping by.